All right, guys, so welcome back to Basin Motorsports. So today is wrap day, so I'm going to start wrapping the WideFox. And before I cut any vinyl, I need to develop my strategy, or I have developed it, and I want to share it with you so that you can keep this in mind if you want to wrap your Foxbody Mustang or any other car. There's a strategy evolved to how to do it and in what order. Let's take you through it. So by now, if you've seen it on Instagram or Facebook, you know the color I picked to wrap WideFox in is called Satin Urban Jungle. Now the reason I picked this is that I couldn't decide on a color for the WideFox. I really liked the blues, I liked the purple, I liked the green, I liked even kind of the root beer color. I wasn't a big fan of red. So because I couldn't pick any of that, I went to one that kind of can do all of it. So the Urban Jungle, if I kind of just show it around in the light, what you see is that it changes color, right? You see a little bit of purple, you see some green, you see some silver, the right color, it kind of goes to a root beer in that. Now, the vinyl itself is not going to be much more difficult to lay down than any other vinyl on the car. The difference in this is that you have to understand that a color flow material is going to be a little bit directional. Now what that means on the wrap itself is that everything you wrap needs to be in the same direction. So the vinyl, when you get it in a roll, it comes in 60-inch width and 75 feet long. So while the width makes a difference, on most of the Mustang itself, it doesn't make a difference at all. You could wrap it either fore aft or up down. The trouble comes in when you start getting to this rear quarter if you want to put it into one piece. From in front of the pillar itself, all the way wrapping around to where the trunk is beyond 60 inches. So if I were to wrap the car up down, meaning the width goes fore aft this way, I'm going to have to seam it somewhere. And then you've got a seam that you got to deal with and all that. So for a directional wrap, what I'm going to do is wrap it fore aft. And that means the width will go the height of the car, and the length of the roll will go fore aft. That way, I don't have to worry about a seam on all the pieces other than the roof to the pillars. And it doesn't really matter because I can then adjust the length as I need to. If I need it longer for like this piece, not a big deal. I just cut it longer this way, and then I've got my width of 60 inches, which I'll just balance top to bottom to be able to wrap it. So now with the direction of the material on the vinyl, it's going to be pretty easy to develop the strategy of which pieces to do first, then next, and then last. So what I'll do is I'm just going to take you through the car piece by piece and show you the interactions of all the pieces so you can kind of keep in mind what you should do first, second, third, all the way through to the end. So let's start at the hood. So when you first look at your hood, recognize that the hood kind of butts up against the front fenders and the cowl. The front fenders I've already taken off because if you remember I had to sand and repaint them a little bit, and I can adjust them, I can put them back on temporarily to wrap it, and then I can take them back off to be able to wrap around the edges to where the fender then meets the hood, the cowl, the front bumper, things like that. So the hood itself, once you have it cleaned, it doesn't have much interaction. Nothing stops you from wrapping it, and it really doesn't stop you wrapping anything else. So the hood can be done at any point. The cowl itself, kind of that way also. Once you have all your trim taken off, you'll notice there's one wiper that you can take the two screws out, drop it down in the cowl, and then you can kind of wrap it itself. You'll lift the hood up, it'll get to the front edge, but taking the fenders also gives you the side pieces there to make it pretty easy just to wrap on its own. So nothing really stops you there from wrapping. The front fenders, they kind of have some interaction. So you've got to have the front fascia off to be able to wrap around the front of them, kind of in between the pieces. And the same thing with the front bumper. If you're going to repaint or anything else before you wrap, get all of that done and then cover it up, then wrap it. Nothing else really stops you other than it's going to be easy to do on the car with the fenders, so you got to kind of play that out. And then you'll want to take it loose at least to be able to wrap behind it, in between it and the fender, kind of trap that edge of the material. All right, so looking at your doors themselves, nothing really stops you from wrapping these doors. I've already got all the trim off, so obviously everything around the window, I've got the handle taped up. Now you're going to want to wrap the pocket of your handle down here prior to doing this other piece, because that is going to go behind the edge of the main surface. So that'll be the first piece you do on the door. Then you can basically take one big sheet, because it's less than 60 inches wide, cut it to length this way, fore aft, give yourself some extra, slather it on there, and then just wrap the whole door in one big shot. The roof, well, the roof is probably going to be the last thing you touch on this car. The reason is the roof kind of goes over everything. So it goes over the front pillars, it goes over the rear pillars. When you seam it together, it's less than 60 inches wide, so running fore aft, you can basically cut a piece just longer than the length fore aft of the roof, put it across, cut out your sunroof piece, wrap it down in the channel. That way your sunroof, when it goes down in, the seal goes on top of the wrap and the edge is below the seal. Okay, so it's going to be up to you whether you want to do your door jambs or not. I would recommend it, but it's really kind of a choice if it's going to make a difference to you or not. I'm going to do mine just so that it matches, and I'm only going to do the base, and I'm going to do the back pillar right up here. Now these can be done, you can do one separate piece for the bottom. You can do another piece when you do the rear quarter. You can wrap that around and kind of mold it down in here. You just have to give yourself enough material to be able to mold it, shape it, heat it, all that stuff. Otherwise, you can do it in one piece and then do this prior to wrapping this surface so that you can wrap it around and this goes on top of this. So also things to think about are if you're going to do this piece and this piece, which goes first. I'd say probably this base piece needs to go first and then do the back piece here so that this comes on top of this, kind of down here at the edge. But again, the whole point of doing all these pieces in order like that is to be able to hide the seams. So when you look at it, you don't see the edge of the material, you just see kind of a seamless color. So now again, wrapping the rear quarter itself, not going to be that bad. You're going to obviously have some interaction with the roof. So you'll do the quarter prior to the roof piece. That way it can be done. You can fine tune the edge to where it's going to wrap the roof down over it, and then you don't see your seam. Everything else on here, obviously I have the rear bumper off. I've got the taillights out just so that I can then wrap everything on the quarter itself, wrap around the edges on everything. And there's really nothing other than the pillars to decide what they're going to be once everything's taken off. Nothing stops you from wrapping this. So you can do this at any point. So it's kind of up to you whether you want to do it at first, last, middle. As long as you have your pieces on the pillar done, you could wrap it next if you want to, or you could save it almost for the last. Okay, so obviously one of the last pieces is going to be your trunk. Now, it doesn't really have to interact with anything. You have your rear window trim already off, so there's nothing on the front. There's really nothing on the sides because you can lift it up and get it up out of the way so that you don't have to have an effect with your rear quarter fenders and that. So I've already got my emblems off. Remember, I left the lock in the trunk, but it's pulled out so that I can kind of slit the material, heat it, and I can just kind of form fit it all the way around the lock and then put the lock in back over it. Not a big deal. I'll probably wrap the lock in carbon fiber just to add a little bit of different color because I'm trying to keep chrome off of this car as best as I can. Alright, so obviously I'm missing the rear quarter fenders or the My Racing over fenders itself. I've got those taken off, they're sanded. I will wrap them completely separate, and that way I can just wrap behind the edges. I'll put holes where the rib nuts are, basically to put the fasteners back in. But it's pretty easy to be done on its own. They're a separate piece. I'll just wrap them, wrap the edges, and that way when I put them back on, the edges are kind of sandwiched between the fiberglass fender and then the metal. And I'll use a little bond material, which I'll show you later, how to keep that wrapped to the fiberglass because it's not really a great surface to wrap to. All right, so the last piece obviously is the roof, and it will probably be the exact last piece that goes on this car. One is that I need to make sure that the roof kind of comes down to this edge, and then it'll matter where I seam it up to the pillars. So I'm thinking right here at this edge, right where the quarter window comes off, is where I'm going to stop the roof material, which means my pillar should go up above that so that it's covered, and it's probably going to be somewhere in the 1/4 inch range of overlap between those. Looking down, because the car is so low with the roof over the pillar, what you won't see is a seam. It'll be seamless until you get down on your knees, you look up, and then you'll be able to see just a small little line or a slit right there where you can see just the edge of the vinyl. All right, so the last two pieces obviously are going to be the front and rear bumper. Now, because I need to fix the front bumper, it's got a split in it. I need to fix that, re-sand. Now, I'm also going to sand down the headlight buckets. I'm going to sand the grille. I'm just going to wrap over the trim for right now. I felt like doing black, but then it really is not going to match very well. So I'm going to wrap all of the trim at this point. So the painting and the fixing and all that will be done prior to wrap. And I will put the bumpers back on the car to wrap the majority of them, just because it makes it a lot easier, something sturdy to hold it while I work. And then once I get ready to probably wrap the edges and that all the way around, I will then pull it off, set it probably on a table or something, and then wrap all the edges and seam tape it or whatever I'm going to do there. And then I can obviously go back on the car, no issues, and it'll be ready to go. Okay, so hopefully that gives you some insight on to keep an eye on directional. On material itself, you now know that the car is going to be the Satin Urban Jungle. Hopefully you guys that picked that color, hopefully you can gloat about it a little bit. Otherwise, I really had a tough choice picking the colors. I loved all of them. The red's not so much because I'm not much of a red car guy, but there's a part of me that just wanted to put some PGF over this, or the paint guard film, and leave it kind of a patina color. I kind of like it now that I've sanded it down. So there again, strategy, strategy, strategy. Pick the order, what makes sense, wrap, kind of like a roof, right? When you're roofing a house, you start at the gutters, at the base, and you work your way up because the top overlaps the next layer, the next layer, the next layer, all the way to the bottom. So that's it, guys. That is how I'm going to wrap WideFox, the strategy to do it, and hopefully it gives you an idea when you go to wrap your own pieces, gives you a strategy to do it, kind of how you do it in the base. That's it. It's time to get wrapping. We'll see you next time.